Hi, everyone. We are here today with Lera Doederlein. Just to let you know a little bit about her, she qualified for this year's Winter Paralympics in Beijing, representing Team USA in Para Nordic Skiing. So, hi, Lera. How are you today?
Hey Brandon, I'm so good. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And on behalf of AMCSI, we are so thankful for your time and we are definitely cheering you on. And actually, when do you leave to Beijing?
I leave in 3 days from now, so February 22nd is when we head to LA, and then officially to Beijing is the 25th.
Before we get even into like Beijing and the Paralympics a little bit more, I definitely wanted to hear your journey of like understanding arthrogryposis, kind of what that experience looked like for you. Arthrogryposis, technically, there are like 300 or 400 different types of varieties of it. So we all have like a very different story.
I was born in a little village in Russia, and I was born with arthrogryposis in just my lower extremities and my hips. Right about the day after I was born, I was put up for adoption. About 18 months after being born, I was brought to the US and adopted into a family. The way arthrogryposis affected my legs was in my hips. My hips they're kind of not permanently externally rotated, but a lot of times when I'm on my back, I can't control it. They just kind of lay out. And then in my lower part, like my legs, when I had legs, typically people have three good hamstrings in their legs. The way I was born, two of mine in each leg were shot, so I only have two good hamstrings. The way my legs were kind of formed were like they were bent in and kind of like a bow and arrow shape. I had clubbed feet kind of and some messed up toes that always were curled in, and that's kind of how that affected my legs. I guess I'd say I definitely lucked out. I feel like my upper body wasn't affected at all. There have been a few times where I'm like, do I have arthritis in my arms? But I'm pretty sure I don't. I just have really long arms. So that's pretty much it with disability itself.
In terms of like any major surgeries, like at what age did that kind of like occur?
Right. So I think my very first surgery was probably within a few months of me coming home. It's kind of all a blur, but
Wow.
I had several surgeries, probably 7 or 8, and they kind of had combined procedures in them. My first few surgeries all of my surgeries really were to try to straighten out my legs and get them into a more normal shape and form, just so I'd have a more ability to walk. About 7 or 8 surgeries. And my last surgery was when I was 14, and that was when I had my double amputations. Maybe 2 or 3 years before that, I had my last surgery to try to better my legs, I guess. It was a surgery to try to straighten out my legs. I had some metal put into my knees to kind of help that out, but on my left side, the growth was stunted. So now my legs are different lengths, and that's part of the reason why my doctor just recommended amputations.
After the amputation, was it a really hard transition to get into like prosthetics?
I would like to say it went smoothly, but just even thinking about like recovery, I got out of my surgery and I went home the next day, but then recovery took a while. I kind of had to relearn how to do things without like walking on my braces every day. So that took a bit of adjustment. When I got to the point of using prosthetics, it was kind of a hit or miss situation, just because with my specific condition and the way it affected my legs, we weren't totally sure that even with amputations, I'd have the ability and the strength to use prosthetics, which is one of the reasons that we chose like the specific amputation level. Technically, I'm a knee dysartic, so it went through the knee instead of above the knee, but I'm still technically classified as above the knee since I don't have a knee or a full knee anymore. As soon as I got into my first pair of prosthetics, I kind of knew that it would be a little harder, just because also with the way that arthrogryposis affected my legs, certain muscles didn't work, like the muscles that someone may use to close their legs in, or even the muscles to lift up their legs as they're sitting. I don't really have those. They're really weak. And so I kind of had to learn how to compensate and like work around those issues, which took like about a year of PT that I went through. And I adjusted pretty easily. I think I kind of just had that idea in my head that I knew it would take work, but I wasn't stressed or like frustrated with the process. I was kind of just going with the flow of it and taking every day by day as I could.
When specifically was that light bulb moment of, oh, I kind of want to try that? What got you into like Para Nordic skiing?
Para Nordic skiing kind of was a connection from cycling, and that was a connection from sled hockey. Initially, I actually found adaptive sports as a whole through my clinician hanger clinic back in Arizona when I first started walking, and that's kind of where I first started playing sled hockey. I was introduced to a clinician who was missing one of his legs above the knee, and he played sled hockey, and he kind of got me out to a practice one day, and it kind of just spiraled from there. I fell in love with the sport right away and started practicing more and more and competing. And after about a year or so, or even less than a year, I received a grant from the Challenge Athletes Foundation for sports equipment. And that's kind of where I got more in contact with just adaptive sports and those opportunities to try new sports like cycling. That's how I got onto the women's CAF hand cycling team. But in terms of skiing, I actually was at a double above knee amputee. It's called a BACA boot camp for hanger clinic. It's like a boot camp where amputees can come and really just get into a rhythm and be able to learn how to walk without worrying about falling. The whole group aspect is really nice to have in that situation. And while I was there at that event, there was a U.S. Para Nordic coach, Beth Ann Chamberlain, who came out and she was talking about the sport of U.S. Para Nordic skiing. I talked to her for a bit. That kind of got me in contact with Oksana Masters, who is now my teammate on the women's hand cycling team and the Nordic skiing team. Between the two of them, talking back and forth with me, and after a while of convincing, I'd say, and just getting the timing right, I finally went to a ski clinic up in Breckenridge called the Ski Spectacular, and that was back in 2019. So I've only been skiing officially for 2 seasons. That's pretty cool, actually, how it all works. I got into sled hockey from my prosthetic clinic and also skiing. So
out of like the 7,000 sports I just read, what is your favorite to do? Or like what have you grown to love the most? I'm just kind of wondering.
Oh man. Well, it's definitely between sled hockey and skiing. Sled hockey, I've had a bit more time to fall in love with the sport, but at the same time, I fell in love with skiing and sled hockey in just about the same way. I got on the snow and the ice, and right from there, I was like, okay, I have to keep doing this. As of right now, I feel like it's a tie between sled hockey and skiing. I don't think I could ever choose.
Gotcha. Well, for Beijing specifically, you're going into Para Nordic skiing. What modifications do you have on your equipment or your sit ski? What does that look like?
My setup, just because I haven't had a whole lot of experience in skiing, I have a pretty simple setup. I just have a bucket that would look pretty similar to a seat, maybe that's up to your hips sometimes, maybe a little lower. And I just have a few straps holding me in. My technology isn't super fancy yet, but hopefully it will be eventually. And then I have poles to ski with as well.
In terms of maybe in the future of like sled design, do you have any ideas of what you would like for your equipment to look like?
Yeah, so I've had, especially over the last few years, being on the US development team, I've been able to see some of the best sit skiers ski and their setups. It's been really cool to look up to other double amputees who are looking for the same or similar setup as me, like Oksana Masters, Dan Knassen. They're both double amputees, and their legs are pretty lengthy like mine. So their sit ski is similar to mine, except the way mine is it kind of cuts off where your legs are supposed to cut off, and there's nothing really holding your legs to push onto. It's kind of hard to describe, but it's almost like a seat that would wrap around the front of your legs and hold them in. So then when you do go to thrust and move forward, you'll have more power to use through that. So that's kind of my hope for my future bucket, really.
Hopefully it comes into fruition soon. Now, in terms of training for the Paralympics, what does your training regimen look like?
Especially over the last few months, it's been pretty not simple, but just like regular, consistent schedule. We ski 6 days a week, and we go to the gym twice a week. So just getting a natural flow of being active and just getting that ski time in, but also as a biathlete, getting that shooting time in mixed in as well. Just staying consistent with things. And you also have those workouts that are more focused on maybe intensity or recovery. So just having a good balance of that has been our focus for the last few months prepping for Beijing.
Outside of the Paralympics, what is Lera all about?
I'm a high school student still. Well, not technically, I am. I'm finishing off my senior year in high school, so especially the last few months, I've been getting some good schoolwork done, getting some reading in. But I mean, what makes me happy and just things that I enjoy in general. I'm kind of a TV head. I really enjoy Grey's Anatomy, so I'm always watching that or just some other TV series that I can binge. But I always just love to hang out with friends, teammates, friends, family. I kind of just love surrounding myself with people. So I'm kind of always trying to make sure I'm around people and doing activities that they enjoy probably. And then when I come home and go to bed, I'm like, okay, it's time for Grey's Anatomy. So that's kind of what's got me.
I love that. So I'm also starting a new segment where we take a deep dive into Instagrams, and
Ooh, okay.
I have 4 pictures from your Instagram account, and I just want you to give us a little like background on if there's a story behind one.
Oh my gosh, this sounds so old.
So tell us what's happening here.
Okay, so this was like a year and a few months after my surgery, my last surgery for the amputations. And I was still living in Arizona, and this was probably 6 or 7 months after I started playing sled hockey. And then at the time, our team was getting affiliated with the local NHL team, the Coyotes. We had the opportunity to do what was called a blue line buddy situation at the beginning of the game. Everybody was paired up with a player, and they got to meet them and say hi. And he was the captain, and at the time, I mean, even now, he's my favorite player on the team. That was kind of just like one of my first like surreal hockey moments. I looked really nervous and awkward. I remember after that, I got to go on the ice, I think, and got a free shot puck right in the middle of that. It was pretty exciting.
So here's a second one. Tell us a little bit about this one.
This was one of my second or third surf competitions. We're out in Malibu, and that was when I got my first trophy, one of my first bigger trophies. It was just a really sweet trip. One of the biggest things I remember was, I think it was my very first wave of the weekend. Not even competition. We just went out there to scope out the surf and see how it was. And I caught this killer wave. That was like a dream ride. It lasted like 30,
Whoa.
40 seconds, but I was like, oh my gosh. That was like a prime moment for me of that event. It's so fun.
Wow. I have so much respect for surfers. I just feel like I would faint in like mid surf because it's so fast, like from what I see.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot different from any of the winter sports and cycling even. Like, it's always been a love-hate relationship with me at the beach. I mean, when I had legs, I would go to the beach with my family every once in a while, and having braces that used orthotic socks and having to take those off and then like get carried through the beach wasn't my best memory of the beach. It was pretty hard to enjoy. Once I moved out to San Diego, I actually had a teammate on my hockey team who was a big time surfer locally. He got me into surfing, and just the whole community around that was able to. I mean, I'm definitely still afraid of the ocean just from, I don't know what kind of phobia it is, but just the overall fear of the ocean. I don't know why, but ever since I got to go surfing with that friend of mine, I mean, it's kind of just been a love. I mean, not a love hate, but it's more like a growing love on for surfing and the ocean overall. So
That's crazy how just like surfing really like changed your mindset about the ocean. Because I'm a little afraid of the ocean. So many kudos to you.
Oh, it definitely hasn't been easy. There have been hard days in the ocean, but the part that makes up for it is catching that wave and enjoying the ride. So I would say if you have the chance, you should try it.
I'm about it. Or maybe I need to take lessons from you. Let me know.
No, I tried to give a lesson to one of my teammates who has one arm, and I could not teach her. It was pretty bad. I gave up.
Oh my gosh, you're hilarious. Okay, so I'm really excited about this third photo. I want to hear the story about it.
Oh man, this was such a fun trip. My oldest brother actually, who competes in the sport of jiu-jitsu, and he teaches it. It's basically his entire life. He had a big tournament in Orlando, so the whole family made a trip out of it, and we went out to Disney World, and it was a pretty exciting trip. I think before this, I had gone to Disneyland like twice, and this is like one of the places that if somebody asked me where I could go right now at any time, I would say this place. Something about it just brings a lot of joy to me, and probably the rides too, but just like the overall atmosphere is super exciting, as I think anybody would know. But it was also a great trip because my niece, who was less than 1 at the time, was able to experience it, and it was just so adorable to see her enjoy it for the first time. So, such a great memory.
That's so cute. And I mean, this place is like literally the land of happiness. So I get it.
It's overflowing with joy.
Okay, last photo. And I was just like looking at this. I was like, I wonder who won.
So this was Christmas this last year, and my dad got like a gingerbread kit, right? And we tried, it was just one house, so we had two sides to it. That was my side, believe it or not. The one showing right now was my side, and we had trouble throughout baking it because it fell apart twice. My dad decorated the other side, and I remember we were just like cracking up, and my mom was like watching us, laughing at us because it was such a ridiculous moment that we had nothing else to do besides laugh at it. It was like really sad, but at the same time, like probably one of my favorite moments from Christmas this last year. It made the trip going home really great. So
Well, thank you so much for giving us some background on some of these photos. The gingerbread one was definitely my favorite.
honestly, same. It's just a great memory, but looking back at it, it's just like so ridiculous.
Right. Oh my gosh. Well, overall, the last thing I kind of wanted to ask you was we have a lot of kids with arthrogryposis who definitely want to try out a sport, but I think are often either discouraged, thinking that they cannot participate in the sport just because they don't find the adaptations that they need, or maybe they're just kind of scared to put themselves out there. So, what has worked for you to put yourself out there, or have you ever been given any advice that has really pushed you to do more?
I would say, I mean, especially coming from when I didn't find sports until 4 years ago when I had my amputation. So that whole butterfly effect of sports events didn't really happen to me in my early life. So I definitely understand where, I mean, when I was younger, I had the same issues. I didn't know what adaptive sports were, and I kind of just expected that other people expected me to do whatever I could in the sports that I had seen, or just not do them at all. So I feel like one thing that's really stood with me, especially since having the opportunity to try so many sports, is that yes, it is harder sometimes for anybody to make adaptations, but especially with these organizations and the teams, they're really trying to make sure that we all have the opportunity to try the sport and just enjoy it, whether or not you want to do it again, you want to compete in it permanently. Like, you're just out there to make sure you have fun. And so I think just try to believe that you can do the sport, you can try it out, and that adaptation will roll in once it's found, really. So it's just trusting the process and opening yourself up to the situations and the people that come to you about sports like that and anything.
Thank you so much for your words of wisdom. I can't wait for everyone in our community to hear everything that you've shared. And we are so stoked to hopefully tune in or just get all the updates of you competing. And again, on behalf of AMCSI, we're so thankful for your time. We are cheering you on. So I hope you have the most wonderful day and you have the best experience in Beijing.
Thanks, Brandon.